I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing Astréa, and Astréa is going to do, her talk's going to be on forgetting as a way of healing. Astréa is a psychoanalyst, probably many of you have heard, in Sao Paulo, Brazil. But in addition to that private practice she conducts these outdoor sessions with people on the street. Some of you might have heard about that, but I find that phenomenal and wonderful. And she's also been working in public psychiatric day hospitals and coordinates therapeutic groups and so forth. And she's an artist and a philosopher. And she's also on the faculty and a supervisor as well of the New School of Existential Psychology. So with that, I will turn it over. I'm excited.
Thank you, Nita. Okay, so I will start with little presentation, performance, where I'll be singing, and it's connected to our theme, what is healing and forgetting. Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! You know, I need someone. Help! When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody to help me anywhere. But now those days are gone. I'm not so self-assured. Now I've changed my mind and open up the doors. Help me if you can. I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you be around. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me? Help me. Ooh. In the great green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. And there were 3 little bears sitting on chairs and 2 little kittens and a pair of mittens and a little toy house and a young mouse and a comb and a brush and a bowl full of mush, and a quiet old lady whispering, hush. Sapore di sale, sapore di mare, un gros tanto amaros de cose perdute, de cose lasciate lontano da noi. Dopo il mondo è diverso, diverso è qui. Il tempo e le giorni che passano pigri. E lascia il bocca e il gusto del sale. E mentre ti bacio, sapore di sale, sapore di mare, sapore di te. Na casa di Renne si canta, si ride, c'è gente che viene, c'è gente che va. Na casa di Renne bottiglia di vino, na casa di Renne stasera si va. Pau, pedra, fim, caminho, resto, toco, pouco, sozinho, tall and tender, young and lovely. The girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes each one, she passes, goes. Ah, moça do corpo dourado, do sol de Ipanema, o seu balançado é mais que um poema, é a coisa mais linda que eu já vi passar. But I watch her so sadly. Ah, porque tudo é tão triste. Yes, I would give my heart gladly. But each day that she walks to the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at me. Tall, tanned, young, lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, I smile. But she doesn't see, she just doesn't see me. help. I need somebody help. Not just anybody help. You know, I need someone help. Okay, that's Now I will be reading. Do you think it says get it?
Yeah.
Don't know if I know how to work this. Yeah?
Just try to bend it really close to your
Yeah,
mouth.
just fit it over your ear so it's comfy.
It's long. Okay. Okay. What about you?
And then turn it on.
Yeah? How
Yes.
is it? Okay, good. Thank you. I met a woman whose mother used to tell her that she was a queen. I believed in my mother. I felt like a queen, she told me. She was full of pride. It was not pleasant to be with her because she would say whatever it was in her mind, and she was a racist and arrogant woman. She felt she was superior to almost everyone, including her husband. But as she was always in a good mood and always laughing out loud, no one would confront her much. Once I talked to her about my work as a therapist, and she told me that she didn't need a therapist. She didn't need to be healed from anything. And she added, healed from what? Her remark stayed in my mind for quite a long time. Healed from what? When she said that a cure had no use for her, I wondered about our desire to be cured as a key element to change. I wondered about her way of being. Was she suffering? Most likely she was suffering, but her defense mechanism of being offensive to other people didn't let her get in contact with her suffering. I'm a therapist and I believe in healing. I believe that we can change. I associate cure with change. In my view, staying the same is equal to no healing. It has no moral value. I'm not saying that you must change to feel better, to get better. It could happen that you change and feel worse, and I could consider that healing. Everything must be seen in the big picture. Sometimes we feel worse, our symptoms worsen, and then later we get better or vice versa. In the big picture of life, every event, every situation, every experience has its own value. I see forgetting as a valuable and necessary premise for healing. The kind of forgetting that I'm talking about is linked with memories charged with too much energy. Much more energy than our psyche apparatus can bear. Memories that don't allow our psyche to feel free, to reconnect with different objects, but consume and imprison our energy. Memories that pressure our psyche to return to them all the time. Freud would say that our patients suffer from reminiscences. Their symptoms are mnemonic symbols of traumatic experiences which have been withdrawn from everyday consciousness. He says that a traumatic scene arrives in the mind accompanied by vivid memories and generates a lot of affects and emotions. A painful image or painful thought that has been completely dealt with wouldn't return. Freud compares symptoms with monuments. Monuments are mnemonic symbols. There is a monument in London that commemorates the devastating fire that happened in 1666 and destroyed a large part of the city. Freud then asks what we should think of Londoners who today shed tears before this monument, suffering for something that had happened more than 300 years ago, instead of going about their business. He adds that every neurotic behaves like these unpractical Londoners. Not only do they remember painful experiences of the past, but they still cling to them emotionally. Because they cannot be free from tragic experiences of the past, they neglect what is real and immediate. A monument is constructed not only for us to remember, but also for us to forget, so we can take care of different things in our own life. When we erect a monument or write something on a piece of paper, it allows us to forget about them for a while. A scar, for example, is similar to a monument. It is a reminder of a painful event in my life. When I have a scar to remind me of something, I don't have to remember all the time about the painful situation I experienced. I have a symbol with me as a reminder. That is why Freud says that soldiers, when returned from war with scars, would have less traumatic symptoms. They have a symbol on their body to remind them of the traumatic experience. So they feel free, so they may feel confident to forget about the war for a while, because there is a constant symbol on them as a reminder of it. In the case of symptoms, the connection with the events in our past is lost. We don't know by what means this peculiar symptom took place. It is like contemplating a monument that we don't know for what purpose it was erected. Symptoms shouldn't be eliminated because they are our own peculiar way of being, which is something to be enhanced. But they shouldn't be fixed or rigid. When we are free from our tormented memories, we are able to connect with new events and embrace multiple ways of being, even opposing ones. We tend to be less rigid. We feel liberated. Could therapy help us feel free? Nietzsche talks about being liberated, about feeling free. But to be liberated from what? To be free from what? Once I read an article in Nat Geo magazine about a guy who was traveling on Road 66. He wrote that he had never felt so liberated. That word stuck in my mind, liberated. I wondered, liberated from what? In that article, he wrote he felt liberated from his parents. It makes sense. We feel a connection that attaches us to our parents. Not only parents, our caregivers, our society, family, teachers, moral laws, politics, our homeland. So how would it be like to feel liberated from most of that? It would mean to be liberated from everything that had constituted us. And that's not what we are looking for. We need the things that constitute us. We are who we are because of our past. But what about the things that constrain us? Things that push us to look back most of the time? things that consume our energy and don't allow us to look at distant horizons? Shouldn't it be liberating to forget about memories that constantly push us back? What about this internal voice that is constantly criticizing us, constantly repeating that what we did was wrong, that we should have done it better, and because of that it will punish us with the feeling of guilt? Shouldn't it be liberating to forget about this internal voice? It is not easy to lower this voice. Nietzsche suggests that we look back to our past with good eyes. When we condemn ourselves for being this and not that, we are looking at our past with bad eyes. Regretting and lamenting what it was is a bad way to look at our past. So Nietzsche suggests that instead of this, the laceration of our hearts, we could change and say to ourselves that we wanted what happened to us, that we substitute it was to I wanted it. That would be a way to be free from unpleasant memories. Nietzsche says that every it was is a fragment, a riddle, a horrible incident, until the creative will determines. But that's how I wanted it. That's how I want it. The only thing we can change is our past. Not the facts, they're unchangeable. But we can change how we see them. And in that way, it is possible we could see our memories with good, loving eyes. I will give a simple example. Let's say I choose a beautiful high-heeled pair of shoes to wear at a party, knowing they are uncomfortable. So as a consequence, I cannot enjoy the party because I feel pain. So I regret my decision of it, as I knew my feet would hurt. But instead of regretting my decision, I could admit to myself that I wanted to wear them. I wanted to be beautiful. Being beautiful was my wish, not comfortable. Realizing what my true wish was could maybe free myself from regret. Laing sustains that we don't need to return to traumatic past to resolve unresolved ideas, thoughts, images. But if that is not possible, we will have to return to them. He gives the example of a guy who arrives in his clinic suicidal and depressed. And for 50 minutes, they managed to laugh and talk about pleasurable things, like whistling and telling jokes. When the guy was leaving, he remembered he was suicidal and depressed. So he adopted his old body posture and his depressive ideas. And because he couldn't forget the unpleasant past, they would unfortunately have to return to it. Nietzsche says that time does not heal every sorrow. Rather, it is the satisfaction of many wishes that gradually occur and bring forgetfulness. Time allows us to make new pleasurable connections. And to connect with new pleasurable things, we need time. Reconnections need time. I end this paper with a song called What I Did for Love from the musical A Chorus Line. It says, "Kiss today goodbye and point me toward tomorrow. We did what we had to do. Won't forget, can't regret what I did for love. Love what will remember. And another song, this one from Sting. If you love somebody, set them free. Thank you.
First up, I love the performance always.
Thank you.
It was like even more embellished than I've seen you do it before. So
Yes,
it was beautiful.
yeah.
It was quite good.
More embodied.
And this lovely way that you have of laying out a case study that is so intelligent and heartfelt. It's really appreciated.
Thank you.
But who else would like to comment?
Well, that was so thought-provoking because it's you were able to take an angle that no one ever talks about. I mean, it's so interesting because I think very often I've thought about healing in terms of being able to sort of recover things that you've defended against, you've had to survive, and disappointments, frustrations, difficult things, and somehow that, and we've already talked about the aspect of how enduring the pain of that, and recovering that, but this other part of it, that it's, and it's a huge part of it, being able to forget, and the idea of having a scar that kind of allows you to forget, that there's something that you've kind of healed over, but there's a mark, and you can kind of, it's a reminder, but the reminder ironically is something that allows you to remember if you want to or need to, but then also to forget. And also, the way you ended with Nietzsche, saying that it's really not, recovery doesn't always look like how we think of it, that there's a way in which, moving forward and pursuing your desires and your passions, being open to that in spite of, the terrible things that have happened, that helps you to recover as well. So I don't know if I have a question, but I just thought it was really mind-blowing. So, yeah.
It made me think about when you write something, when you're writing, it's a way you can forget, because it's written. And I love this idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a terrible memory. I forget a lot, and I think it's very helpful to me. Mm-hmm. And I have friends who remember a lot, and you made me think I love those friends who remember a lot. It helps me to forget. It helps me because I love returning them. They hold on to those things, they remind me, and it's great.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. Otherwise, you have to know everything by heart, right? Like before writing, everything had to be, the poems had to be known by heart.
Yeah, it reminded me, Dion says you have to go into analysis to remember in order to forget.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, forgetting is definitely key. Anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, very good. Yes. First remembering, then forgetting.
Yeah, just thinking about forgetting and how so much it seems of healing is about forgiveness. Forgiveness seems to be closely related to letting go and forgetting things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think you need to forget. Better, you need to forgive yourself first, I think, that get rid of guilt and regret, which is not easy. Because as much as we do therapy and we think about it, you always have in the back of your mind, oh, I could have done it better. Why did I do this? So when you understand that this is part of yourself and you integrate, and it's not really integrate, but you want it, you want what happened. But you have to see in a different angle to want what happened. And then I think you can forget. But it's difficult to forgive. And yeah. I think it's all difficult, but I think that's the way. Forgive, forget.
It's really a little bit different than how I look at forgiving. Like I tend to think that it's important to forgive and remember, but I think you're talking about something very different. For me, it's the forgetting and letting go. I mean, forgiving and letting go. And as you were talking about having the scar, maybe you can decide to remember or not. But it's forgetting the charge to some extent.
Yes,
isn't it?
exactly. Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Not what happened. Yeah.
Oh, and then after you talk about
Thank you for that talk. I think you're so cool. You remind me of a panther. You're so graceful, but you know you've got a wow. And I think that speaks to the work that you do with the unhoused. Yeah, on forgiveness. So you know, coming from a conflict situation, forgiveness is messy. It's not linear. So I think, you know, for people there are days when they can forgive and days that they can't, and doing work where with people who bring people together who perhaps have killed a loved one, and an encounter is facilitated, you know, there's actually ways to encounter one another without potentially forgiving, an engagement in understanding. And I think that can be very much an acknowledgement of the present and what remains in the present. But I thought your talk was beautiful. The other thing I thought about was, you know, sometimes we think about the ghosts from our past, but I think if we went back into the past, we would be the ghosts and we wouldn't be recognized.
We would be the ghosts.
Yeah, if people could see us.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah, very good.
You know, I think forgiveness also ties into this, but there's something incredibly radical about this quotation you chose from Nietzsche. You know, wanting what happened. I mean, no one goes that far. You know, people we talk about accepting, we might go so far as to say embrace, but these are sort of nebulous terms. We don't quite always know what they mean. Nietzsche is saying something very extreme, wanting it, but I relate to when I feel sort of healed through something that was incredibly difficult, or something that I may have hated. You know, say a heartbreak, for instance. Something so incredibly painful. You know, at this point, I can look back and I say, there's much of that I chose, and also even the parts of it that I can't pinpoint where I chose it, I still look back and say, it's how it ought to be from my perspective. It's what I want, because it's such a part of me, and I so fully am happy with that part of me, you know. And so that just accepting that something happened passively, just sort of embracing it. This is so Nietzsche, that it's like the passion for it, the desire for it.
Yes, the desire for it. Yes. Yeah. Imagine, for example, you are carrying a load, a big load of something for someone, and then you feel pain on your back, and then you say, why did I do this? And then you admit to yourself, yes, because I wanted to feel wonderful to this person. I wanted them to praise me. So, you know, you have to see things in a different angle. Then you say, yes, true, I wanted this. I wanted. But then, yeah, it's very hard to, but you have to see things from different angles to understand the desire. Because the desire is not the desire, I won't feel pain in my back. It's the desire to, you know, the example I give, to be beautiful, to people to praise me. That was my desire.
Yeah, you did it for some reason. And
Yes.
Another part of what you said is that I wanted it, and then you said I want it also, which is to say, I think it's great if you can find the way in which you wanted it, in which you participated somehow.
Yes.
But then there's another level where you could say, even if I can't see how I wanted it, I want it now because it's so part of me.
I think building on what James said is on Nietzsche. It feels like when we are helping our patients, sometimes we need to comfort them and giving them the love that they didn't receive, and acknowledging their experience. So there's this comfort that is a part of it. But many times what we need to do is to confront them. And similar words, totally different. And a good way to confront them is bringing these truths or these phrases that are kind of hard. Like you need to want all bad things that have happened to you. Like embrace that in a way that you feel that you have wanted that. So those truths, they are like kind of very hard to swallow, can be very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is also the relationship with the patient that you must see the right time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
of course. Yeah.
When to
Right.
comfort,
Yes.
and when to confront.
Right. Yes.
Anybody else? I'll pass it. I'm taking over as the microphone passer.
Yeah.
I wonder. And then we're close to being at the end of our
James.
time.
This idea of wanting, would you say that, as I'm listening to people talking and kind of mulling it over, would you say that perhaps thinking about it as really being honest with yourself about what the secondary gain is?
Also, yes.
Okay,
Could be.
that's
Yes,
another way to
could-
think about that.
Could be, yes.
Okay.
Could
So,
be. Yeah.
maybe I didn't know that I was choosing that, but I
No.
chose it for this reason,
Yes.
and okay.
Could be secondary, could
The
be
secondary,
primary,
yeah.
but could be, yes, secondary. I wanted attention. I wanted to be central for
Got
the
it.
central.
That makes
yes.
sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you're trying to, there's a distinction that's interesting. Taking responsibility for one's behavior, including the secondary gain,
Yeah.
as opposed to wallowing in self-blame, which can often be confusing. And the slippage often occurs. This between obligation and duty and responsibility. There's this kind of, slippage. And I think part of the therapy that you're describing is trying to help a person make those distinctions, which is always challenging. But if they can learn to do that, then you've done a good job. Then they walk out in the world and recognize they do all those things.
Yes.
And then it sort of circles back around to the concept of freedom
Yes.
that you were saying, to be free from.
Yes.
Yeah.
To forget, to be free, to reconnect to new things. Otherwise, you're always having to look back because the energy
Yeah.
is imprisoning you.
Yes,
The past is imprisoning.
you're free to accept that you're an asshole.
I am also often reminding myself that when I see a change happen, I will never know why the change took place.
Right.
I might rush to take credit for it because I did X, Y, and Z, but who's to say that the person didn't do any therapy at all? They might be better off, or the change might have come more quickly.
Yeah,
Oh, is it cheap?
great, great idea. We don't have to know why. Happens is
Right.
good enough, yeah.
And I like the way that you tied forgetting to this making space for desire and wanting, you know, and really that's the reason why that we can,
Right.
we can understand a desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Many years ago, when I was at the New School in New York, I took a class on memory and thinking. So it was the early days of cognitive psychology. And the guy who was running the class, Greenbaum was his name. And this was, psychoanalysis was everywhere in New York. So he decided that the way to think about psychoanalysis and what Freud was about with psychoanalysis was as motivated forgetting, which from a cognitive point of view made perfect sense. So then the question, of course, what motivated it, right?
Thank you, Astréa.
Thank you.
You're beautiful.